actually got to endorse her as a No Pipeline candidate herself. So it's great to see. I was able to help her out in her race, and now she's helping me out. So it's full circle with women supporting each other, and I think that's really cool. So thank you all for coming. Ellen did a great job in describing everything that I've been involved in. And I just want to backtrack a little bit and tell you what all of those positions that I've been doing have led me to standing here in front of you today. So I started my first community involvement in 5th grade. My best friend and I decided to start an environmental group where we went around and picked up trash. And I know that seems pretty insignificant in a way, but it's actually a big reason of why I'm standing here today. That was my first taste of actually getting my hands dirty, doing the work that I saw that my community needed. So I was active throughout my community in high school as well, and then when I went to college, I got involved with the U.S. PERC, so I did my internship in Richmond. So I always knew I'd end up back down in Virginia. And I went door to door talking with people about the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, raising money and getting memberships. And then the other part of the summer I spent going around doing the same thing for the Human Rights Campaign, which they work on LGBT rights. So that was really a really growing summer for me. I learned a lot going door to door and just talking to people face to face about issues that they cared about. After college, I went to work for a program called the Violence Intervention Program, and it was a safe house for survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. So I had firsthand experience dealing with emergency rooms, police departments, filing reports and things like that, and just the heartbreak of domestic violence and how pervasive it is in our society. I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina for a little while, worked for Acorn, going into at-risk neighborhoods and organizing people that were living in typically subsidized government housing. And the community around these public housing units wanted to kick the people out of these public housing units and build expensive condos. So we were working really hard to organize the people of those communities to save their own neighborhoods. And you see a lot of that happening in cities that are growing, that they are pushing out the older neighborhoods. So since moving to Waynesboro for the last 11 years, I've been a very active member in my community, like Ellen was saying. I volunteered with a Boys and Girls Club, seeing firsthand the struggles of working families trying to find affordable childcare. I also was Big Sister of the Year in 2009. My sister graduates, my little sister graduates high school this year. So we keep in touch, although about 2 years into my volunteer work with that program, they went under because of lack of funding. So throughout my volunteer work, I constantly saw really dedicated people, staff people that work in these agencies or other volunteers. Yet they were consistently facing funding cuts and lack of resources. So while the need continues to increase, the resources and the funding was decreasing. Professionally, I've been working in the mental health field for the last 10 years. I was working with at-risk youth in the public school setting. Now I work with adults coming out of state psychiatric hospitals. So again, seeing firsthand what happens when we don't have appropriate safety nets for our people. When folks go into a state psychiatric hospital, their benefits stop. So when they get ready to leave the hospital, they need to reapply and get restarted with their life all over again. And if they don't have someone like me who is helping them guide through the system, they've got to do this on their own. And it's completely impossible and overwhelming to figure out, how do I reapply for Medicaid and disability, wait for my check, pay for an apartment, get into treatment, pay for my medications. All of these things that people are facing as they step foot out of a state psychiatric hospital. Environmentally wise, I've been an environmentalist since about 5th grade, working on picking up trash. That's something that I still do to this day. I organize river cleanups and trash cleanups. I've been a board member for Wild Virginia for the last 3 years, and they're a large agency or organization that works on forest protection. Like Ellen was saying, I've been fighting the pipeline for the last 3.5 years. It's been a lot of work. I know you probably can't see I've got gray hair from the pipeline. And the pipeline issue has woken me up to a lot of things that is wrong with our democracy. When you have politicians on both sides of the aisle accepting donations from Dominion, and then Dominion wants friendly legislation, and it's easily passed, although the vast majority of the citizens are screaming that we want protections for private property rights. We want protections for our water, our land, our air. Yet all of our elected representatives have been taking money from Dominion. So as of now, I'm the only candidate in this race who has signed the pledge with Activate Virginia to not take any money from Dominion or Appalachian Power. And I've also taken it a step further and pledged to not take any money from any fossil fuels. Yay! Thank you, Ellen. It's just, when you have money in politics, it just gets things so corrupt and mucky and dirty that I have also pledged to not take any corporate money at all. So when I go to Washington, I will be your voice. I will not be the voice of corporate interest and special interests. Yes! So, like Ellen was saying, we all know this is a heavily Trump red area. So we are going to need all of you to help with a campaign. Door knocking, phone calling, talking to your friends and your neighbors, people that might be Republican or independent, but they might be feeling that, just like my dad was feeling, left behind. My dad as a farmer felt left behind by the last 30 years of politicians. So we need to have those conversations with people who feel that they haven't been heard, because I want to be their voice. It's very important to me to be that voice for the people who have been ignored and left behind for the last 30, 40 years. So thank you all for having me. I'm glad the rain held off. I've got the petitions over there. We're collecting about 1,500 signatures to get me on the ballot. And we also have a volunteer sign up, and we've got some stickers and buttons as well. But I just want to hang out and answer any of your questions as well. So thank you all for coming, and let's chat.
Give us your top 5 issues. What are your top 5 issues?
Top 5 issues. Number 1 is campaign finance reform. Number 2 is the environment. Number 3 is healthcare. Number 4 is education. And number 5 would probably be maybe animal rights. I'm a foster mom for cats. And not only just cats and dogs and domesticated animals, but we need to talk about animal welfare as well.